And welcome back to Big Mouth, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of the dceu Daily. Don't forget, you can tag me on Twitter at MoviesTVMad and make suggestions for topics, articles, videos, anything you like. And as well as doing that for you, I will give you the biggest of shout-outs. Now, Scott Edwards has asked me something which I will go into later on. I think you've asked me this before, Scott, but I'm quite happy to go into it again because it's kind of an interesting subject to talk about. But first of all, let's talk about James Gunn and this small screen kind of site. You know what? I read something about a Justice League trilogy from them, and even though I believe that's happening, I believe them very little. They seem to be the new tinfoil hat kind of site. So this is what they did. They went exclusive. A new Green Arrow will be introduced in HBO Max's Piecemaker series. It's a bit embarrassing, though, when James Gunn himself says this. Hang on a minute, let's find it. So someone, L-Blog the Batman, goes, "Hey, James Gunn, anything you can say about this?" It's nonsense. Yes, James Gunn himself says it's nonsense. But if we go into this, and we're going to have to go onto James Gunn's Twitter. So, yeah, it's nonsense. But James doesn't leave it there because it's really funny. You know, when you're trying to disperse rumours, the last thing you should do is tell people how much you love the character that these sites are lying about. Anyway, side note, as a kid, I loved Green Arrow. When my friends and I played Justice League, that's who I'd be. I stayed up late one night making myself a little hat, and he was my favourite Mego action figure, tied with removable mask Batman, but even better than Starsky and Hutch. Wow. So does this actually mean anything that he loves Green Arrow? Well, there has been a lot of rumours with James Gunn's Suicide Squad and Green Arrow. So there's been rumours about a post-credit scene with Green Arrow. Listen, I think the DC Extended Universe are going Green Arrow. And I think this probably is the major reason the Arrow TV series was cancelled. Now, personally, especially with a multiverse strategy, why can't you have both? But we could be going into a situation where, in fact, Stephen Amell's Green Arrow could be part of the DC Extended movie universe. It may not be a brand new actor. It wouldn't surprise me if James Gunn does feature Green Arrow, not in Peacemaker because he said it's nonsense. That will make him a liar, right? But maybe we will see a version of Green Arrow in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. What do you think about that? Comments down below. Let me know. But yeah, whether he's involved in anything James Gunn's doing, I think a Green Arrow movie or a cameo or something is going to be part of the DC Extended Universe. And it's very interesting how much of a DC fan actually James Gunn is. I'd say he's both a Marvel fan and a DC fan. And maybe that's the reason he doesn't understand all the banter and the venom between Marvel and DC fans. But I think his future is with the DC Extended Universe. I think basically Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will be the last thing he ever does with Disney. As I've said before, he does feel, personally, he feels betrayed about how he was sacked. And he's only coming back for his love of the cast, the crew, and Guardians itself. So he's got a great future in front of him over on the DC Extended Universe. And I can't wait to see James Gunn's Suicide Squad. And I can't wait to see what he does next in terms of DC. So on Sunday, I watched Man of Steel. And yesterday, I watched half of Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition, and I'll be watching the other half today. It's a long movie, 3 hours, and with everything I've got to do throughout the day, my fantasy of watching both those movies as one will never happen unless I free my responsibilities up one day. And maybe I'll be able to watch BVS as a whole one day as well. Anyway, I think very few fans of Snyder's DCEU have posed this question. In Justice League, Superman is resurrected, but the public have no reaction to this. Snyder did a great job in BVS showing the public's reaction to Superman's, sacrifice and death. There was a lot, you could see that people were guilty, people were sad that he was dead, they realised that he had saved them and he was the hero they thought he wasn't. So it was a brilliant moment. But in Justice League, all that's cut out. There's no reaction from the world to see Superman back, which is a ridiculous, pathetic thing not to do. But also there's a bigger question for Zack Snyder's Justice League. We know Superman's going to be resurrected in that movie. But what happens to Clark Kent, who was also officially dead in BVS? Does he rise again like Superman, or does he stay dead? Now, this is a very, very important question if you think about it, everyone, because this is going to be his future. Because whatever Zack says about, his Justice League being Elseworld and part of the multiverse, he's still a character within the DCEU. He is part of Wonder Woman's canon because Wonder Woman has met him before, in BVS, which is absolutely DCEU canon, right? The same as Shazam. Any of these films, he is canon. So let's just say Zack just continues to say, listen, we're not bringing back Clark Kent with the glasses. Clark Kent from Smallville. He's dead. Superman rises, but if we bring Clark back as well, it's going to look too suspicious that they're the same person, which I understand that if Zack was to go this way, I'd absolutely understand that. But there are issues with this because it would really stop any other cameos, not as Henry being Superman, but it just changes things because it would be awesome for Clark Kent with the glasses to be talking to Billy Batson, for example, not just Superman. So what this would make it very difficult for Martha Kent as well, played by Diane Lane. She would always have to meet, Cal in secret because the Clark Kent persona stays dead. As I say, this is a question that I'm shocked to my very core that no one's asked Snyder over on Vero. I wouldn't waste my time asking the question because he wouldn't reply to me anyway. I think he kind of looks at people and people he's familiar with. He doesn't really answer random people's questions. So maybe one of you who's had a question answered before by Zack could ask him that because, of course, we should wait till the movie anyway. But I do think it's an interesting thing to talk about because it's very important. Does Clark Kent come back or does Clark Kent stay dead in Zack Snyder's Justice League? Because if he doesn't, there's many, many consequences within the universe and within the story and the world that Zack's created within this. It would make perfect sense for him to stay dead because if he comes back, when Superman comes back, it's kind of in a way like what we saw in the Reeves Superman, in the Donnerverse. And in a way, Zack's been trying to get away from that. And so it would be very viable for Clark Kent to stay dead. Now, in the mythos, when Superman dies, kills Doomsday and is killed by Doomsday, Clark Kent is resurrected like Superman. And I think by that time, Lois Lane already knows that Clark's Superman anyway, but the rest of the world just swallows it, right? They don't see it as a coincidence because people don't think for one moment Clark Kent is Superman. So there's a lot of creative ways you can bring Clark back without it posing too many questions, but it's going to be interesting what Zack's going to do with this. This is something we don't have any pictures. We've seen Henry in the black costume. If we're talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League, we've seen no Clark Kent pictures posted by Zack. But to be fair, the least pictures we've seen when Zack's teased his Justice League has been of Clark or Superman. He's keeping that element of the film very, very secret. And that's understandably so. So again, comment down below. What do you think? Do you think Clark Kent will stay dead in Zack Snyder's Justice League? Or will he be resurrected like Superman? And finally today, Scott Edwards asks, at Movies TV Mad, my question for tomorrow's DCEU Daily is which DC films do you find the most beautiful and emotional? For me, it's Aquaman and Wonder Woman, no question. Yeah, I think, Scott, you definitely asked me that before. No problem, by the way. I'm just going to tell you what I said last time. For me, the most, and as I said to you before, there's lots of beautiful DC movies. From a certain point of view, Superman the movie is a stunningly shot movie, considering we're talking about 1977 till 1978. You know, they didn't have the stuff that they have these days to make these movies. So that's a beautiful movie and a very emotional movie. But for me, as I said to you last time, it's got to be Batman Begins, because Batman Begins is a character study like the Joker movie. Batman Begins really does study Bruce Wayne as a character study. It really, even though it's called Batman Begins, we see so much of Bruce Wayne in the first, hour of this film. It's very similar to Superman the movie, and I know that Chris Nolan is a big fan of Donner's Superman the movie. He's a big fan of the Bond movies as well. I'd love to see him get involved with that franchise. When I say franchise, not just do one movie, but guide maybe a trilogy or something. I think that would be great. I think that's going to happen in the future, and I think Bond could really do with an intelligent person writing and directing those movies for a while, because it's in a bit of a stasis right now. Anyway, going back to DC, so Batman Begins is not just, I mean, you could say that Batman Begins isn't a beautifully shot film, but of course it is. I mean, he's in those Alps, he's in that snowy place, that's stunningly shot. And the cinematography there is beautiful. The choreography is beautiful. But it's not really about the beautiful. You know, a Batman film isn't going to look beautiful in colours because it's a dark universe. But in terms of this character study of Bruce Wayne, what Chris Nolan and Christian Bale, they do a wonderful job of showing us the struggle of this man. You know, he goes around exploring the criminal fraternity. He hasn't got a plan. He doesn't really want to be a vigilante at that point. He doesn't know what he's going to do. But he goes traveling the world, right, to try and study the criminal, population. And I think he learns a lot. And it's only when Ra's al Ghul finds him, someone who's ultimately going to be his enemy, he actually becomes his mentor. I think it's kind of similar to the comics, because in the comics, sometimes Ra's al Ghul is a mentor to Bruce Wayne and Batman. So they mixed it up a bit and told the story a little bit differently. So, Liam Neeson does a great job with Liam Neeson, because of kind of the Star Wars, The Phantom Menace. He's a great mentor, not just to Anakin, but to Obi-Wan Kenobi as well. And he does, again, you never guess that's Ra's al Ghul. You just see him as the mentor of the film. And it works until he reveals himself as Ra's al Ghul. But it's a really emotional story, because you really see the struggles within Bruce Wayne. He may be a rich couple's son, but he saw his parents being killed in front of him. And that is always the energy of the film. This is what drives this man. And that is beautifully emotional, Scott. So, what do you think? What's the most beautiful and emotional DC film? I think Wonder Woman is a very beautiful film. By the way, so is Wonder Woman 84. I think Man of Steel is a stunning film. And I think that Batman vs. Superman is a stunning film as well. I mean, if you talk about stunning films and Zack Snyder, those two phrases should go together. But there's, if from a certain point of view, you could say the 1960s Batman looks beautiful as well, full of colours. Very, the 60s were very colourful, weren't they? And so I suppose it depends on your point of view. But in terms of the most emotional experience I've had with a DC movie, yes, it has to be Batman Begins. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. See you again soon.